I'd like to see you guys thank you for the presentation. What's your sense of your respective legislatures? What kind of support are you going to get for this, since you're going to need, obviously, a lot of support?
Well, I can tell you, in the PC caucus, we have full and unanimous support for that property rights resolution when I entered it into the House on February 24th.
Yeah, in the Parliament of Canada, it's definitely got the support of Stephen Harper. The day that Randy and I did our announcement, I got a telephone call from Pierre Poilievre, who was putting together the election platform for the federal party, and he said that he'd been instructed by the Prime Minister to call up to find out about including property rights in the party's election platform. So he's both very aware of it and very interested in it.
We had the gentleman over here.
Neville Wells, I'm from the south end of the riding.
Sing us a song, Neville.
I like the accent. We spoke, Randy, a couple of times about this disturbance up on Highway 509 that had to do with the Mining Act. And I was quite fascinated by what Scott was saying about the constitutional amendment. And knowing that we all knew that the Mining Act is supported and funded, I suppose, in large measure by rather strong corporate power and money, would this constitutional amendment have any impact on the Mining Act, do you think? And what might that impact be? And put a third spin on it. Has there been any amendments or changes or impact on the Mining Act subsequent to Bob being put in jail?
Thank you, Neville. Well, first off, the Mining Act has been amended. We have, after a long fight, and I'll say a lot of people may not be aware of this, but it's another little element of land ownership and property rights in this province and across the country. A number of properties in Ontario had their surface and their subsurface rights divorced from one another. The surface and the mineral rights. And that caused significant problems. Mining companies could go in on your property, do exploration, do drilling without your consent or your approval and without any compensation. After a long battle on that, we have got it somewhat fixed, where the present government, under the amendments to the Mining Act, they said they will not allow mining claims on private land in southern Ontario. So we've got part of it fixed, but people in northern Ontario are still subjected to mining companies going on private property and doing exploration. This constitutional amendment would indeed give you that added level of protection of use and enjoyment. For the government to issue a mining permit on private land, then of course they would have to pay compensation under this constitutional amendment. Does that answer? Okay.
I just want to make a point about the Mining Act. Isn't in the northern part of the province where all the minerals are?
We have mining here in Lanark and Frontenac counties.
True, but not like they do up north.
No, there's more substantive mining up north, for sure.
That's just another reason that the guys in Queen's Park have to go.
I'll agree with you.
My name's Glenda Moore, and I live RR3 Smith Falls. I'd like to know, how does one demand transparency in the farce that it's the Green Energy Act?
Most of these are provincial.
What is the question? We didn't hear it back there.
But this is on the Green Energy Act. If you want to repeat it once more, Glenda?
Yes, I'd like to know how can we demand transparency? We cannot get answers to questions in this act. It's a farce. We have a lot of questions. I couldn't even name them all right now. It's got to do with solar energy.
Yeah.
How do we get answers?
Right, so how do we demand transparency from the government? and the payers on the Green Energy Act. And the simple answer is one that you're going to like. The Green Energy Act was passed about a year and a half or so ago by Dalton McGinty, and it excludes and precludes people from the process.
Yes.
It excludes and precludes municipal governments from any influence or any decision-making on what happens in their communities. So how do you demand transparency when the government is hiding underneath the biggest rock that they can find? You get rid of that government.
Amen.
There is no other solution there. All right, have this fellow over here, Don.
Thanks for coming. I enjoyed your presentation. I'm Don Page from Montague Township. And Bill Dobson and we couldn't be here today, so I promised to ask this question on behalf of him and myself. There are usually property standards bylaws at the municipal level. I'm worried about this amendment to the Constitution that it would make such property standards regulations invalid. Because what if a person, if your neighbor puts a pile of garbage, uses his property to pile stuff that degrades the value of your property, how will that be handled?
Right. Well, you're asking two questions. First of all, one relates to the second part of the question. Should I repeat the question, by the way? Everybody hear that?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, everybody heard it? Okay, good. So, yeah, the question relates to bylaws and whether we be in a position where various bylaws that deal with land use become invalid. This deals with, first of all, deals with the creation of new rules that change your ability to use your land in a way that is financially detrimental. That's the idea. So any existing rule that maybe has the effect of lowering the value of your land is not going to be affected. That's really important. That's the first thing. So in the same way that, if I buy a piece of land from Randy and it already is encumbered by some kind of rule, I can't very well come along and say, well, I wanted to use this, it was zoned agricultural, but I really wanted to use it for an industrial site. I can't really claim that's a new rule that's taken away some of my value. That's the first thing. Secondly, the law is not intended, and I think the courts would understand and construe this this way. It's not intended to affect laws of general application. A rule of general application or a law of general application is one that is meant to apply to everybody. It's not singling you out. It's meant to apply universally. There are ways in which, if one wanted extra caution, one could amend this. And of course, we need not necessarily enact precisely this amendment with precisely these words. I think it's well worded, but one could change it. For example, I'm looking here at Chapter 11 of NAFTA, and they had a concern that this kind of thing might make it impossible for rules of general application to apply. So for greater certainty, they said this. This is Chapter 11, Article 1110, subsection 8. They say, for purposes of this article and for greater certainty, a non-discriminatory measure of general application shall not be considered a measure tantamount to an expropriation. So that kind of thing then ensures that bylaws can exist, and it can be changed too. And the reason they use the words non-discriminatory measure of general application is to make sure you don't masquerade something as a measure of general application when it in fact is meant to merely target this piece of property or that piece of property.
Hi. My name is Dale Evoy, and I live in North Elmslie, Drummond Township. I have a small business there on that street. My husband and I own a greenhouse business. I live in the same area where the solar project is supposed to go up next year. And I had some concerns with them going up with the traffic flow on our road. We don't have a paved road there. We have just a gravel road. On worst days, it's short of being a cow path. It's pretty bad. But my question to you is, with this new legislation coming in, my concern to them was, how are my customers going to be able to get to my business with the heavy traffic that they're going to have? And obviously there's going to be a lot, because where we are situated, the other end of the road is not available to them because, I guess, the weight over a certain bridge on the one end. So all of it's going to be located 3 doors down from where my business is. Would they have to, will I be able to be compensated in any way if there's a great loss of business to my establishment because of their business that they're putting in?
Yeah. So the question is there a mechanism to compensate for loss of business because of in this particular case, a solar farm?
Well, because it's Dalton McGinty saying we can't question them putting in the green energy,
Yeah.
so they're going to affect my business. I'm going to lose business because
Yeah.
of where I'm located.
There's no mechanism within the Act for compensation under that Green Energy Act. So the only avenue you would have that I can think of right offhand, if the actions of others cause you an injury, in this case a financial injury,
Yes.
then you still have the civil courts
I see.
to seek a
But under
remedy.
this new legislation that you're bringing in, will that protect future homeowners for something like that?
No, I don't believe there'd be any impact whatsoever in that particular case. It would just be, the need there in the Green Energy Act, and every act of the Parliament or the legislature that can create a cost, an individual burden on someone, ought to have a mechanism to provide compensation. But most of our acts of the legislature don't allow for compensation.
So pretty much, you're letting us know that the group of us that are here today, there's not much that we're going to be able to do to prevent these solar fields from coming in where we live.
Well, the cards are stacked against you, purposely and intentionally. That was the intention of the Green Energy Act, is to prevent people from stopping solar farms or wind energy projects from, no matter what. That was its expressed intention, and it does it well.
So Jeff just signaled us we got time for 2 more questions. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
I bought a piece of land in Stittsville in 1972. Was nice dry, and I parked it till 97. And then all of a sudden, and it says wetland. They stopped the beaver trapping and closed all the water that used to be drained. And what do you do with it? It's called wetland. You can't do nothing.
Well, we know what we've done a few things in the past. The landowners have been very active, and we have a few people here who have lots of experience in fighting wetlands designations. Of course, that's the whole purpose, or one of the purposes of our constitutional amendment is to make it so that you don't have to fight government to protect what is indeed yours to begin with. Right? The burden of cost, financial costs and legal costs to defend yourself, it should already be recognized that that is a wrong use of government authority. But I think after this meeting, you want to talk to Marlene, Mike Wesley, Jeff Bogarts, a few others, and they can give you some thoughtful ideas on how to fix it.
Yeah, but before it was all dry, before they,
Yeah.
it was nice pasture land, and it's all this, now declared wetland, and just wet, that's all.
Unfortunately, you're not the only person in that
I know.
situation. It's happened quite a number of times. So one more question, we'll take it over at the back here.
Yeah, that's right. So any previous change that caused financial harm in the past would not be compensated for. Now, any new change that takes place under a law that was previously enacted would still be compensated for. That was the reason for the part section or subsection B of the proposal, which says that it applies to any existing act or any new act. But it would not, if you had a designation like this gentleman who spoke earlier had, that had taken place lights in the past and the harm had already been done, there'd be no compensation for that.
I think we're supposed to call it quits with that. Thank you. Oh, well, I guess we'll take one last one from Mr. Wetland, Mike Wesley.
For this gentleman's query here, I know about his situation. Under Section 79 of the Drainage Act, he can make a declaration to the clerk of the city of Ottawa, and he's got 49 days to comply with the dumping of water on his property, same as in our area.
Right. Like I said, there's lots of people here who can give you some assistance when you join the landlords. Listen, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And